So that wraps up our San Diego. Fuck me, Steve.
Just say SDCC.
No. Certain elements of the Fantastics Four, the Fantastics Four,
the Fantastics. Marvel presents the Fantastics.
Yeah, now I'm just seeing Reed Richards with "Try to Remember the Kind." All right, anyway, tangent. Hey everybody, you're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Billy Z.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And we're coming to you a little later than planned. We actually had recorded last Friday night. When we're recording right now, it's Friday, August 2nd. We recorded last Friday, and if anybody listening is familiar with Skype, sometimes things go awry. There's this concept of Dalek voice, where your voice gets very choppy. And I'll do an imitation of what I heard on the playback. Watchmen. So that's how our recording sounded for over 60% of it. So there was no way we could release that to you. And even if we came in the late stream, you wouldn't know what the hell we were talking about with just the portion that was working. So we apologize for not getting an episode out to you in July, but we're here with you now. We have a lot of stuff planned in the upcoming weeks, but one of the bigger events that happened recently was San Diego Comic-Con 2019, and there's a slew of announcements. And to just get us back into the groove of doing a show, because we haven't been with you since June, we figured we were going to go over some of the announcements and talk to you about them and throw in our opinions and all that. So I'm going to start by throwing the baton over to Steve. San Diego Comic-Con 2019 was known for one big thing, and that was the announcement of the Phase 4 MCU film. So, well, I can't even say just films. There's some other stuff there. So, Steve, why don't you take it and tell us about what was announced in regards to the MCU?
Well, definitely. I think this time, contrary to previous years where they, of course, talked about the upcoming slate of movies, they combined talking about the movies with upcoming MCU adjacent TV series. Now, Marvel TV is nothing new. I mean, we've had Runaways and we've had Cloak and Dagger. We've had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. forever. And of course the Netflix series. But the thing about those series is that they still seem, even though they may reference events, still seem a little bit separated from the main MCU goings on. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the first couple of years tried to be pretty inclusive, or at least drop names and events pretty frequently, but then they kind of started doing their own thing, and that went by the wayside. But this time, because we have Disney Plus coming up this fall, they really decided, because some of the TV series that they're going to be, the original series that they're going to be premiering on Disney Plus, are going to be involving not just the characters, but also the actors from the MCU films. So they put it all together and gave us a lot of information. So going mostly chronologically here, we've got the movies that are coming up for Phase 4 and the shows that are coming up for Phase 4 starting next year. So nothing really for the rest of the year. The last show, or the last movie, was Far From Home, the Spider-Man movie, in early July. Nothing planned for the rest of the year. However, next year we do finally get that Black Widow movie coming out in May. This is the one where it's actually going to be a prequel as opposed to a standalone sequel or something that's in the current MCU timeline, because, of course, if you've seen Avengers, you know what happens to Scarlett Johansson's character. Black Widow is going to be a prequel series, so it'll introduce a couple characters from her past and figures from her past. And of course, we've got David Harbour in there. We've got Rachel Weisz, as well as a few other interesting characters. So Coming up quickly after that in the fall, we've got the first of the Disney Plus series. That's Falcon and Winter Soldier. And this one, it's going to be kind of a buddy series, buddy comedy, but at the same time, a pretty serious exploration of the Falcon trying to take the place of Captain America and the government pushing back against it. So it seems pretty like it could go both ways. It could be pretty funny. It could be very serious. But I'm guessing it's going to be pretty action heavy because they are bringing back the character of Zemo, or Baron Zemo, from the Captain America Civil War movie. Whether it's actually Daniel Bruhl, I don't think that's been revealed yet. Whether he's going to reprise the same role or not. If he doesn't, no big deal. I mean,
through most of his comic book existence, he's been behind a napkin.
Yeah, wearing a purple sock. So it's just, he could go back to that. And then, of course, the next movie, because we're only getting 2 movies in 2020, the next movie in November is going to be The Eternals. Now, this is one that's been kind of teased over the past few months, with a lot of big names signing on, like Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek, Kumail Nanjiani, of all people, Richard Madden, a lot of interesting people kind of signing in. Don Lee, I think, is one of the latest names announced for it, and he's a big South Korean action star.
He's actually one of the biggest box office names in the world.
Yep, and I'm really excited to see him in the show as well. But yeah, so the Eternals, of course, based on Kirby's sort of Marvel version of the Fourth World, kinda, I guess.
Kinda, sorta, yeah. We talked about this last week, and I mentioned that a lot of people who seem to have an affection for the Eternals haven't even read it. It's rough, man. 70s Kirby Marvel is rough. It's really rough. Mad Bomb, the Black Panther, Devil Dinosaur, Machine Man. Whoa. I mean, I think that with the stuff that he did in DC just prior to that, Commandy and the Demon, and of course the Fourth World, even if there were failings in dialogue and some of the storytelling connected to the narrative, these were still great ideas. And with the Eternals, it's a weird series because Icarus is nominally the main character, and as the series goes on, he becomes less and less important. There's some strange stuff. I'm not Kirby bashing at all, but I think even the biggest Kirby fan will admit that dialogue was not his greatest asset, and he seemed to have a lot more leeway with the 70s Marvel stuff than any other point. So the Eternals books are exploding in value.
Well, yeah.
Even 5 years ago, it wasn't uncommon to see them in dollar bins.
Well, and now after the movie, they might go back to the dollar bins. Who knows?
That's really hard to gauge. The only book that really totally plummeted in value, there's like when Suicide Squad was coming up, a lot of the Suicide Squad books were increasing in value. A lot of the characters' first appearances. As time goes on, those have fallen a little bit, but not tremendously. The only one that I can really think of was the first Steppenwolf appearance in New Gods 6 or 9. I forget what number. That's the only one that I've seen, just plummet. But I think good or bad for most of these characters, the TV and the movie element increases their value. And you'll see peaks, but you're not seeing like huge valleys at this point. The books go up, they go back down, but not nearly as far down as they were before.
Well, and again, I'm not the biggest Marvel guy, but my Eternals knowledge is next to nothing. I think I got their 1991 or 92 special that they put out. I know Neil Gaiman's had his hand.
Yeah, because trademarks don't renew themselves.
Exactly, and I know Neil Gaiman's taken a shot at this property. It's one of those properties where I know they keep trying. I don't know who the audience is originally, but you know what? Marvel's had so much success with the MCU in bringing in characters that may not be everyone's favorite and making them exciting, making them interesting to people who otherwise probably couldn't give a shit, you know. And Eternals might end up being a fun cosmic romp. I mean, if they keep it light, sort of like the latest Thor movie, or any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I mean, it could be fun.
I don't think that really fits the concept, though.
Well, no, it probably doesn't.
And it just seems to me that with the joyous cosmic, you have Guardians, and you have Thor, and it looks like some crossover with the two coming up.
Yeah.
I don't see like a comedic take working well for that particular concept. I may be wrong, and if one of the rumors that was initially out there was that Hercules was somehow in the mix, that's a great outlet for humor. I don't know. I just don't see it as the Eternals, a zany comedy.
Yeah. Oh, it wouldn't be zany. I would highly doubt with an Angelina Jolie. I mean, Maleficent is a ridiculous concept, and she made sure that it wasn't ridiculous. I mean, people might disagree with that, but if she's in it, there's going to be enough seriousness to go around. I don't think it's going to be a failure. I don't think it's going to be a bomb. There's no such thing when it comes to MCU movies at this point. So, you know, it's going to go well. It's not going to be like and this is what we talked about last week a lot, it's not going to be like what happened with the Inhumans. So I'm not expecting anything garbage. It's got a great pedigree with a number of people who are involved in it, who's involved in it. And of course, coming off the heels of, you know, showing that they could do cosmic, intergalactic type stuff in the last, you know, the second to last Avengers movie, and of course Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor. So I think they're going to have some excitement in it. I don't know how many people would really care otherwise if it wasn't an MCU movie that was connected with everything else.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that's enough bandwidth.
I don't care about it so much anymore. I'm going to buy my tickets like everyone else and go and see it.
The only thing that I'm going to interject with that is that the MCU does have the benefit of a few films that did not reach their creative peaks that they had set out for. I think specifically of Dark World and Iron Man 2 and 3 and whatever happened with the Inhumans. I think they have the benefit of that. I think we're still like years away from the first real MCU bomb.
Exactly.
You know, it'll eventually happen. You know, the law of averages just dictates that. There's going to be a film that just doesn't work and no one realizes it just doesn't work and it underperforms. At some point, it's going to happen.
Yeah, but what's going to come out 4 months after Eternals is another, you know, brand new property for the MCU, and a character that I think a lot of people have actually who know who this character is, which again, we're talking about a small subset of people who are Marvel fans. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. You know, this is going to, hopefully, I know, that's, you know, from the cynical marketing, part of me, I know that's probably what they're thinking. They're looking to, you know, have this film do for Asian American representation that Black Panther did for, African American representation, or, you know, Black representation on, film for superheroes. So, they've got a really great lead, with Simu Liu. I love Simu Liu. I haven't thought of him as a serious actor, cause I know him from the Canadian sitcom, Kim's Convenience. And he had an appearance, I think, in Fresh Off the Boat last season. He's a funny guy. He's built like a brick shithouse. This guy is stacked. And I'm really excited to see how he'll perform in an action film. He definitely has the charisma to really make anybody fall in love with him. So I think if people don't know who Shang-Chi is, which most people probably don't, and they are going to play with his origin a little bit to make it a little bit less super racist-y, racist. His dad is no longer Fu Manchu. It's now going to be the real Mandarin, not the fake Mandarin played by Ben Kingsley in Iron Man 3. And of course, the Ten Rings are very connected to the Mandarin character, from the original Iron Man comics and all throughout Marvel Comics history. So, I think it's going to be really exciting. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good sort of, you know, thumbs up for a cool, diverse character that I think a lot of people can get behind. And, we'll enjoy watching on screen. I'm excited for it. Followed by that, of course, in 2021, we've got WandaVision, which is another Disney Plus show. This one with, of course, Scarlet Witch. And Paul Bettany is going to be back, reprising his role as Vision. So we're going to try and figure out how Vision is going to make it back, because he is still dead in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So this could potentially be sort of a hop and skip and jump around time. They might be changing Wanda's powers a little bit, making her definitely closer to the Scarlet Witch of the comics, bending reality and warping reality, as opposed to sort of the whatever they need her to do in the movie so far, which is either telekinesis or nightmares. I don't know. But it should be fun. And, of course, it's going to bring in the adult character of Monica Rambeau, who we saw her, the version of her as a kid in Captain Marvel earlier this year. Now we're going to see her as an adult. Whether she'll have powers or not, we'll see. It could be really cool. And apparently there is going to be some multiversal connection here, which is going to lead into one of the, if not the most anticipated movie, in 2021 also, is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So this one, it's going to be, again, Benedict Cumberbatch is back. It would have been basically 5 years since the last Doctor Strange movie, but this one is, they're really pushing the horror element on it. So whether they can make it the first truly scary Marvel film, MCU Marvel film. I mean, we've had the opportunity to potentially see a Marvel horror movie. Unfortunately, if they ever release it, we might get to see New Mutants. Who knows? But this one, they're going to have basically, I guess he's in the realm of nightmare. So, should be pretty exciting there. Also, around the same time, we're going to get the premiere of Loki, which with Tom Hiddleston reprising his role is going to be a lot of fun, and probably will be a lot of either hopping around through time or hopping through the multiverse, sort of leading into that whole spring of the multiverse that it sounds like they're pushing with WandaVision and Doctor Strange. So we shall see. Next, we're actually going to get a couple more TV series in 2021. It seems like it's a big year. We're going to get a What If cartoon series on Disney Plus, with a lot of the same voice actors reprising their own roles. And then we're also going to get the Hawkeye series with
Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner with international musical superstar Jeremy Renner, as well as introduce the character of Kate Bishop, which I'm really excited for because Kate is my personal favorite Hawkeye. So we'll see if that is going to be sort of more grounded in reality as opposed to everything earlier this, in 2021 being very cosmic, being very multiversal. This one might be a little bit more, street level reality based, and probably a lot funnier, because if they are going to sort of take Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, or heck, even the solo comics Hawkeyes, which are mostly funny. And of course, with Kate Bishop, she always seems to be written with a great sense of humor. So hopefully we can get a nice comedic series that's exciting and fun to watch.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been thinking about if they are going the comedic route, you have so many fantastic elements from that series, like Pizza Dog and I'm sorry, folks, New Jersey, it's dog, not dog. And and the Russians in the tracksuits, and
Yep.
There's so many great elements that would work so well if that is the take that they're going for. And for some of the elements that aren't as comedic, I think Madame Mask is going to be a fantastic villain if they go that route.
Yeah.
Just from a storytelling standpoint, I'd love to see some live action based on the LA component of the Fraction story.
The West Coast Avenger.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that they're probably going to make it accessible, funny, but probably pack it full of action. I have a feeling that it is a mini series, so they're not giving themselves a lot of episodes up front, but potentially, of course, there could be a second series or a third series. I have a feeling they're going to try and make it the anti-Arrow Because they, again, it's a premium service. It may not be their more adult-oriented premium service, so they might not be, throwing out the fucks and the shits and whatnot. But it's probably
as far as I know, with the Disney Plus, it's just Disney Plus. There's no like Disney Plus adult.
No. Hulu is going to get, I think, a little bit more of the, I would say more of the mature content.
With Ghost Rider and Hellstrom, which weren't really discussed.
Yeah, they didn't really talk too much about that, but I have a feeling maybe by New York Comic Con or early next year for Emerald City, we're probably going to get something. And then, of course, also in the fall, in November, we're going to get Thor 4, also known as Love and Thunder. And what's the big thing in Thor 4 that everybody's excited about? Well, we're going to get Jane Foster as Thor, which is going to be pretty exciting. It'll be cool. Hopefully it works out really well. I know Natalie Portman's going to be back reprising her role as Jane Foster. She kind of disappeared after the second movie, and I think there was kind of a sense that she was like, "Screw the shit, I'm done with it. I don't really care about Marvel anymore."
Wasn't she also pregnant?
There's a lot of other stuff that she was doing.
I also think that her pregnancy was a huge factor in her not making an appearance. I believe that was stated.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, there were several years between that, and so she wasn't.
Yeah, but I think at least with one of the Avengers projects, the lack of a cameo was because of pregnancy.
Yeah.
I think she's popped out 2 kids since the Dark World.
Probably, but she's also done a couple pretty heavy indie films too. So, I mean, Vox Lux was pretty serious and hardcore. So, I think she was she did her 2 really popular funny movies and then, or, out there cuckoo movies and then did something else. But she's back, so it'll be a lot of fun. Everybody's pretty much reprising their old roles. Taika Waititi taking the helm yet again as director and also as Korg. So real excited about that, as is most people. Now that was that's all they announced for the Phase 4 films. But they did have some sort of post Phase 4 or, second stage, or, hey, coming up after that. We just didn't have time to put something together yet. Blade. I mean, they've already cast Mahershala Ali as the new Blade. So I'm super excited about that. But, looking at the dates, we're at least 3 years away from a new Blade film. But it's only 3 years. So take that. Right. And then also, one thing they did mention, and again did not put any dates to it, there's no casting announced, or their actual plans with it, but they did mention X-Men. They did also mention Fantastic Four.
They mentioned X-Men as saying mutants.
Yes.
Feige actually did say the words Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now that they have the properties back, they can actually, do something with them. And they may not be front and center in their own films just yet.
I think they will be. I think they're marquee enough names that that's what you're going to see. I think you will see elements like, oh, look, there's cosmic rays. I don't think you're going to see the first appearances for these characters as cameos. I think it may make sense more for the Fantastic Four if you saw the civilian characters before they go into space and all that. I also think that there's enough of a bad taste with Dark Phoenix's failure at the box office that letting the X-Men gestate for a little while, it probably isn't the worst idea.
No, not at all. But at least the idea of mutants, period, is something that they could bring in. I don't think that...
I think you will see some X-Gene references somewhere along the lines.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
And honestly, what I would love to see if the first X-Men are the original 5 X-Men.
Yeah,
I would love to see that.
I mean, but everybody loves Storm and Gambit. Come on.
If it's the first 5 plus Storm and Wolverine, I'm okay to that too.
Yeah. Exactly. Of course, there's going to be
not everybody loves Gambit, please.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of pushback against anybody else besides Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. So he's going to be in the 60s. Age,
but also, I kind of like the possibility of a Wolverine that's shorter than Storm. I mean, I'd like to see for me, that was like a central part of Logan was his height. I hope they go that route and not just get a brawler.
I would love to see new casting for it. I just know
How are they not going to have new casting?
they have to.
How are they not?
Have to.
It's all too
But
fucking
you're still
old.
going to have the same people who are, the same people who come out every time that there's a Hellboy announcement. They're like, well, why can't it be Ron Perlman? Because the guy's like 70, or
Well,
the guy.
let me also tell you, I saw Hellboy 2019 on a plane 3 weeks ago. I was wishing it was Ron Perlman. Let me tell you. I love David Harbour on things I've seen him in. He just did not work in that part. We're getting off topic. Let's not.
It was
worry
just
about
bad
that.
writing,
Yeah.
bad writing. But anyway,
No, it wasn't just bad writing. It was a terribly directed film. It grotesque, horrible gore. Then like 10 minutes of levity, like you wouldn't believe. And I don't know what Mila Jovovich was doing. And she was kind of doing an imitation of. Did you see that SNL skit with Kate McKinnon? Where it was kind of like Game of Thrones. It's like, one strand at a time. Did you ever see that one?
No.
So it was kind of like that. Tangent over. Hellboy 2019 sucked. Let's get back to the MCU.
Well, that's it for the MCU. There's nothing else. There's nothing anybody could ever.
There was
care about.
one other announcement, like you said, that anybody could care about, was that Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. announced that the 7th season, which is being filmed at the same time as the 6th season, is going to be its final season. So that was announced at San Diego. And subsequent to San Diego, they did announce that there was going to be a Cloak and Dagger Runaways 3 crossover.
Mm-hmm.
But they specifically did not say that there was going to be a Cloak and Dagger season 3. So,
yeah, but there's probably going to be.
You see those ratings?
It's Disney. It's Hulu.
It's Freeform. I know it's not the level of other things, but
they'll move it from Freeform to Hulu. But Freeform's always been sort of like
40% drop, man. That's a big drop.
It's
anyway, whatever.
It is what it is. There's going to be a season 3. So, but yeah, I mean that's it for the Marvel stuff. Now DC decided not to show up, but they did drop several trailers for the upcoming season, which also happens to be Arrow's last. And I don't know, Bill, if you want to talk about that.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. DC. I'm going to start first with the DC Universe app shows, though. Just because that seemed to have a little more excitement around them, because the 2019-2020 seasons for the CW shows were already announced, but there were some cliffhangers. And in regards to the DC Universe app, we did have the official announcement of Doom Patrol Season 2 and the official announcement of Young Justice Season 4. With Doom Patrol Season 2, the show will be airing on DC Universe, but also airing on HBO Max at the same time. Same showrunners, same cast. Everything looks like a nice continuation of the madness that we've seen over the past few months. The first episode of Harley Quinn, the new animated series on DC Universe, was screened. Apparently, it was filthy in terms of the language, with one person saying there literally was a fuck a minute. So I'm looking forward to that. The little bits that you've seen. I'm sorry, if you can't get into Aquaman high-fiving a dolphin, you shouldn't be reading comic books and you shouldn't be in this world. So that's the way I feel.
Hot take.
The hottest take. Unfortunately, Titans, which is actually the show that is the closest to premiering, season 2 will start on September 6th. They did not appear because unfortunately there was an accident with one of the SFX supervisors who was prepping this SFX stunt hybrid scene and unfortunately died. And out of respect, they did not appear and actually shut down production, I think, for a few days with that. So there was no Titans representation, no trailer. There were some images, but that was about it. And then going on to TV, another trailer, and this is actually the show we're going to be getting the soonest. And I think people forget that there is a DC connection with this sometimes, and that's Preacher. And on August 4th, we are going to get the season 4 premiere, which has also been announced as its final season. By the time you listen to this episode, you may have actually already watched that episode. So the trailer for season 4 premiered there. So now, naturally, we're going to go over to the CW shows, as you had mentioned. And the big thing regarding the CW shows, I would say the two big things are it's Arrow's final season and it's also the season that the crossover show will be based on Crisis on Infinite Earths. Again, Arrow, which is premiering on October 15th, is its final season. Some cast members have left the show, most notably Emily Betts-Rickard as Felicity, though I have a feeling we're going to be seeing her somewhere in the mix, even though she's not a cast regular for this final season. It's only going to be a 10-episode season, so they don't have a lot of time to not wrap stuff up, so it's also going to be interesting because this is the show that birthed that universe, and an Arrowverse without an Arrow, at least at present time for the second half of the 2019-2020 season. I think that'll be an interesting dynamic to see actually who fills Oliver's shoes, I think, in a sense.
Yeah, I know that they've been trying to position Batwoman as kind of taking that, street level gadgets and thugs kind of mantle on. It may be, but I think Batwoman, because there's a lot of colorful villains that they're going to present probably a little bit differently than some of the quote unquote stolen Batman villains that ended up on Arrow. I think that it might be difficult to be an exact replacement, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. People have been mentioning that Arrow probably should have been over maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, but I think the fact that they get a chance to end the series with sort of a wrap up season,
and with a lot of actors from the past too.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've got Moira's coming back.
Tommy's coming back as I think a series regular. I'm not sure.
Something
at the very least recurring. And there's actually going to be a number of Deathstrokes in the write-up because it seems that they are using some elements of the actual Titans Deathstroke early on with Hive. It's interesting in the comic books, there's this consolidation of all these shadowy organizations in the DC universe. In the TV world, they're multiplying. There's also apparently Argus is going to be a component in some of the other shows crossing over a little bit. Maybe we'll see some of the actors once Arrow's finished make some appearances
I would hope
through the other
so.
shows. So the other shows that we're mentioning, of course, are Supergirl, and you have some new cast members for Supergirl, and you also have Supergirl with bangs and a new outfit, and she premieres on October 6th. October 6th, as you had mentioned, Batwoman is coming into the Arrowverse as a series, and her premiere is also on October 6th, again with Ruby Rose playing Kane there. 2 days later, October 8th, we have the season premiere of The Flash. I think it's like the entire cast is returning. So there's a new villain. I think they're playing with chopping up that a little bit with not having a big bad through the entire narrative for the season. I think that's kind of been spent. And I would welcome that. A show that is not part of the Arrowverse but is part of the CW is Black Lightning, and that's going to premiere on October 21st. In Black Lightning, we are going to be dealing with something known as the Markovian War. That's going to be interesting to see how a foreign nation affects... Oh, wow, real life. Again, so far, we do not have Black Lightning incorporated into the Arrowverse, but I don't know. From my standpoint, I can take it if they decide to do it. The last of the Arrowverse CW shows is Legends of Tomorrow. There wasn't much about Legends of Tomorrow. It is going to be a mid-season replacement show this year, and because of that, because of the later shooting schedule, I don't think there was anything ready. I imagine it's going to take Arrow's spot, at least in terms of the schedule, but nothing definitive has been provided, apart from Astra being the big bad for that season. So,
and I
continuing
think,
with a lot of the Constantine dynamics in this show.
Which is, I appreciate because I'm a Constantine fan. I'm a huge Matt Ryan fan. So anything that gets him more front and center, and playing off of the other, great personalities and great characters and legends, I always enjoy.
You know something? I just realized I never posted my interview with Matt Ryan. Because you remember, I never posted it. Because we were supposed to record, and that was when Brian started his crazy travel schedule. And when they had the premiere of Justice League Dark. Thank you, Gary Marino has been very nice to me with the invites to the animated premieres in New York City. I was able to interview Matt Ryan, and I have the MP3, so we'll have to release that as an extra at some point. I
Oh
gotta
yeah,
find that. Yes,
anytime.
I forgot that you do the gay gasp when he gets mentioned. Yeah. So yeah, at some point we'll give that out.
I also like his original accent. It's really it's cute.
Yeah. And then lastly, the event that's tying a lot of stuff together within the Arrowverse for the 2019-2020 season is Crisis on Infinite Earths. They did announce that the crossover will be split so that part of it will air in 2019, another part of it will air in 2020. So that seems to me to be prep already for dealing with one hell of a cliffhanger.
Huh.
And some of the announcements regarding casting of Crisis on Infinite Earths have included that Burt Ward, who was the original Robin on the 66 Batman TV series, will be appearing. No word if it's some version of Robin. But in terms of characters that have been announced, they have discussed and publicly spoken about Brandon Routh appearing as the Kingdom Come Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that. There were rumblings about Linda Carter appearing at Berlanti's office. Of course, she has had a prominent role on Supergirl. Maybe she'll be returning to another prominent role. If you're not going to do it now, when can you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's for me, this is beyond anything happening. Crisis on Infinite Earths is the thing I'm looking forward to the most. And some of it is tied to sentimentality. When I began reading comic books again in my senior year of high school, which was 1985, 84 to 85, that's when Crisis was happening, and I just have a tremendous amount of affection. I hate when people criticize it. How can you criticize something when nothing else like that had been done before? Backwards criticism kind of irks me a little bit. I kind of see this almost like a Citizen Kane or a Sergeant Pepper, that it's so beyond what had gone before it that you really can't criticize it. But that's me. I'm sure tons of people will disagree with me on that. But just to see a live action version of this concept in some fashion, it just knocks me out. So,
Oh yeah.
so Crisis, I'm very much looking forward to that. And then the last DC property that we should mention, because there was an extended trailer, and they finally gave at least the month it's coming out, and that's Watchmen on HBO, and
Mm-hmm.
a very arresting, as far as I'm concerned, trailer for what has been described as the Watchmen remix. And I'm super looking forward to that too.
Well, it really does. I wasn't sure what to think about it until that, like, the real trailer dropped. I was kind of on the fence. I'd probably end up watching it, but then, wouldn't have high expectations.
What?
Now I do.
Shut up. You're
No,
gonna
seriously,
watch
like,
it.
I would have watched it and I would have been like, this is somebody's weird interpretation of what they think a Watchmen world would be. It looks great.
Aren't they all?
Eh. Well, but it could have been crap. I mean,
Well, we don't know yet.
I really
It
love
could be-
Snyder's take.
It
on
could
the
be
film,
a bamba.
but-
We once had a cast member on this show who said the book stunk and the movie was better. The movie is the book apart from the fucking squid.
Yeah, no
So I
squid.
never understood that. I'm sorry. It's his birthday month too. I'm psyched.
Yeah, well,
I'm psyched.
now I am.
Yeah, I'm psyched. All right. Well, the name of the event is Comic-Con, and there actually were some comic book announcements. The more substantive ones, again, just like with the movies, were with Marvel. So, Steve, why don't you go over what's happening in the X world now that we have a slate of books to look forward to?
Well, I think that's the big thing. That was the real, spotlight, I think, from the Marvel Comics announcements. Yep, there was Ghost Rider. There was, further emphasis on the Abrams Spider-Man. A couple other things. Marvel Comics number 1000, of course, which looks like a hot mess. But
it just
whatever.
looks like a
bad.
poorly conceived
It's a
concept. It just looks like it's going to be especially at that price point. If you had that book at a $2.99 price point, that would be selling like 3 million copies. The full price point, is it either $7.99 or $9.99?
It feels like $9.99 is
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Nah.
I have no interest in buying it, and it's basically it's just a bunch of 1 and 2 page stories, mostly origin stories, from several different creators. Now, great writers. I mean, we've got Kieran Gillen in there.
Please don't recite them. We'll be here all night.
Hickman's in there.
They've everybody.
We got
everybody.
Yeah, they got some great artists. Everything looks good, but we've already been through the Detective Comics 1000 thing. I don't want to have a Marvel version of that. So with the X-Men series, of course, that's the biggest thing. We've got Powers of 10 and House of X that Hickman has just started. So as of this recording, we've had 2 weeks of both number ones. And it's off to a crazy start. I'm loving it, and I can't wait to see how this is going to wrap up by leading into this whole bunch of new series. So
yeah, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't know DCBS. Do you know the next time I'll be able to read comic books will be 2 weeks from tonight with my travel schedule, and the box is going to be here on Tuesday. Nobody's going to be here. I'll be in Minneapolis. I'm in Minneapolis for 11 days for work with no Powers of 10 or House of X.
I mean, oh well.
I mean, if somebody wanted to give me the codes.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just joking. I got plenty of codes for people. I'm eventually going to read it. It's cool. It's cool. And look, if that's the biggest problem in my life, that's a pretty good life. It's not, but if it were.
Well, hey, so one of the coolest things I do have to say about the Powers of 10 and House of X is the fact that it just took everything from the past year, all the Age of X, all of the, the Uncanny X-Men that was written by Rosenberg. It just basically just said, you know what, fuck it. We're doing something different. And what this is going to lead into is the start of, I think it's like 7 total new series are going to spin out of this. One of these, I believe, is more of a mini than anything else. But so we've got the big titles. We're going back to sort of the classic titles. We've got New Mutants coming out. Hickman's going to be co-writing that with Ed Brisson. We've got Rod Rice on the art duties. Looks like it's going to be fantastic. It's got most of the classic New Mutant characters back in the mix, including the ones that I guess might be dead. I don't know. Very interesting. We don't know what's going to be happening with Hickman's double book thing over the next couple of months, but clearly we're going to figure out what happens.
Yeah, what do you mean by double book?
Well, House of X and Powers of 10 are essentially the same series.
Right, but that's just a 3-month period with the bi-weekly shipping, right?
Exactly, but then they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a double book, and then we're going straight to all these new series that are going to spin out of it. So
okay, so why don't you tell us about the series that he actually is writing?
Well, he's writing, I believe it's called X-Men.
All right.
And he's writing that with Lanil Yu on art duty, so of course it's going to be beautiful. I like Yu's work. Not everybody agrees, but I like his work. And I think that's going to be an interesting new flagship title. Again, it's adjectiveless X-Men. So I know some people are going to complain. They love their uncannies, but it's going to be good for a nice core book, I think, given that we have no idea how he's going to end Powers and House. But alongside that, we've got Marauders. Jerry Duggan, I believe, is on writing duties with that. Matteo Lalli's on art. That cast is very interesting. Also somewhat controversial because, Sina Grace, a couple weeks ago after it was announced, did come out and talk about how the cast of this book and the concept in general seemed to be very similar to the pitch that he had provided them for Iceman Volume 3. And while that one was shot down, clearly the editors liked the concept or liked the casting of this book, and so decided to reshape it and give it to another team. So I don't know what I think about that. I'm not, I know it happens a lot, and it was nice to, well, not nice, but it was good to actually hear from the side of the person who had come up with the original concept and just had it shut down and retooled. And I'm sure that happens very frequently. So sadly, that happened, but also we do get a new X book, so I'm not sure how I feel about it. We also have a new X-Force. This one's interesting because it looks like half the cast is classic X-Factor. It's got Jean Grey, it's got Beast, Colossus for some reason, and of course Domino, which is traditional X-Force. So that could be another interesting action-heavy title. And then, of course, we've also got Excalibur.
I have to ask you, before you get to Excalibur, what is the creative team on X-Force?
This one is by Ben Percy and Josh Cassara.
Oh, okay.
I'm not familiar with Ben Percy's stuff.
Ben Percy wrote Green Arrow and Nightwing.
Okay.
And he also has like the deepest baritone voice you'll ever hear in your life. Speaking voices like, oh, I'm Ben Percy. I mean, it's insane.
So anyway, that is not the last of them. We do have Excalibur coming back out. Some of the same characters we all know and love from historical Excalibur. We've got Kitty Pryde, and somehow she's also got her dragon back, which is great. I don't know I can't recall who is going to be writing that. I'm sure they could announce that somewhere. I'm not sure when that's specifically being released, if it's being released at the exact same time as the other ones, or if that's going to be a little bit later this fall. And then we get the one that I know is just more or less a mini-series. Whether it'll be a maxi series or a mini series, or might just disappear if it doesn't sell too well. Doesn't seem to be one that a lot of people are excited about, is Fallen Angels. Now, the name is very classic. If you're a longtime X-Men fan, you might recall the Fallen Angels series that dovetailed into the Inferno crossover back in the 80s that introduced several interesting characters like Richter and Boom Boom and a few of the interesting sort of side mutants, younger mutants, like the multicolored lobsters that were psychic, which was kind of cool. But anyway, this one actually focuses more on Quanon, who until recently was the host body for Psylocke. So that ninja with the sort of purplish blackish hair that's been kind of bopping around the Marvel Comics scene since, when was it? Maybe the late 80s, I guess?
When the original Fallen Angels was?
No. When Psylocke got taken out of Betsy's body and put into Quanon's body.
Oh, that was early 90s, I think. Acts of Vengeance, wasn't that part of that?
Was it Acts of Vengeance or Siege Perilous? I thought it might have been...
Oh, Acts of Vengeance was when you had that striking cover with Mandarin and Psylocke. But if you're going to go to an expert on X-Men, you ain't going to me. So, I don't know. You can look it up.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
So I think most people whether they started reading comics in sort of the 80s or the 90s, that's been what their Psylocke's looked like for about 20 plus years. Now Psylocke is back as Betsy Braddock, and that's actually one of the cooler things of the new Excalibur series is that Betsy Braddock is the new Captain Britain, which I think is going to be pretty cool. So to be Betsy Braddock, who is also Psylocke, as Captain Britain, which would be pretty interesting. Fallen Angels, on the other hand, is Quanon trying to, I guess, sort of recover the history that she hasn't really, been able to experience because she hasn't been herself for a very long time. Obviously, comics time versus real time. It's been almost 30 years since she's been herself. In comics time, probably just a couple of years. But I don't know. It doesn't seem too exciting to me. I'm not too familiar with Brian Hill's work.
Me either.
I think he did one of the X-Force series. I'm not too sure. But he's writing on that with, I believe it's Simon Kudrowski on art duties. But it is, I believe, a limited series. So You can pick it up or you cannot pick it up. I don't know. It just depends on how interesting you find Quanon as a character, and maybe they'll do something pretty cool with her. So, that was for me, I think that was one of the biggest announcements there. Obviously for DC, a lot of what they announced or had that was coming out, they kind of announced before SDCs. So, did we have much that would have?
Well, we had a handful of announcements, and some of them were more confirmations than announcements.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest one was Adam Strange, which is going to be a mini-series that is helmed by all of the Mr. Miracle staff, the form of writer Tom King and artist Mitch Gerards, though there is also going to be a contribution from Doc Shaner. The promo image was a cover of Adam Strange by Gerards and a cover by Doc Shaner. So they haven't really announced like how the art breakdown is. I'm not exactly sure what it entails. I imagine it's part of the narrative, but that was probably the biggest announcement that DC had. They did confirm The Batman's Grave, which was a series which has been in the works for some time, written by Warren Ellis and drawn by Brian Hitch. They did confirm Birds of Prey that will be coming out around the time of the film next year, with Brian Azzarello writing and Emanuela Lupacchino on art, and also a new Metal Men series from Dan DiDio and Shane Davis, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that there weren't a lot of comic announcements, just in terms of the MCU taking all the air. I think it was very smart of both Warners and DC to not go the film route to make definitive announcements, because the thunder was never going to be theirs, and it would have been lost in the mix. And plus, with San Diego being an outlet for announcements outside of comics, I think it's mostly known for that now. I think some of the bigger comic announcements are better served at New York Comic Con, or this year Baltimore will be the last show on the circuit. So I'm not surprised that there weren't big comic book announcements at all.
Yeah, and I think that's it. A lot of people have been talking about in different articles on all the major sites about how, and this has been going on for the past several years, where the word comic in San Diego Comic-Con has been increasingly rendered irrelevant by the focus that's put on the big media announcements rather than the comic announcements. The thing is, though, you still go to the show, you've got a lot of comics everywhere. But you're right. It really, any kind of announcement, if you're not Marvel, or if you're not focusing on the big movies that are coming out, it's probably going to get lost in the shuffle. And unfortunately, I think a lot of smaller press announcements probably did. In those situations, I'm sure that there is a little bit more promotion going on before and after, which would make a lot of calculated sense. Given that during the show the focus is going to be on the big flashy stuff rather than the comics announcements, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, so we're segueing into the flashy announcements. So of the non-comic stuff or the tangentially related comic book stuff, what are you looking forward to?
Can I just list them off, because there's
sure. You throw one out, I'll throw one out.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Just to kind of preface it, they had so many great, exciting trailers drop for new TV series, especially that are coming up, that every day that they would post them on YouTube or wherever, I would just giddily rewatch them because they're so cool. But one of the first ones that came out, Picard, for the new Jean-Luc Picard series taking place in the Star Trek universe on CBS All Access. That one's coming out this fall. Really excited about that.
And you probably should mention who is playing Picard.
That guy.
That dude.
That dude who's
Sir something, yeah.
Sir something or other. He's got an accent. You know who he is.
Yeah. That was a really long conversation we had last week. Actually, about the Picard, and that was when the recording was actually sensible. We went over this. I know you're very excited. Of the 390 shows, Next Generation, late 80s into 90s shows, Next Generation isn't exactly my jam. I thought it was a little too cerebral. I thought the show got better as it went along. The first season, I think, is still pretty dull. Next Generation just isn't my jam compared to Voyager I mean, since I think that was the one that was closest to the original series, and when Deep Space Nine started incorporating more, almost soap opera elements into it. But I'm still excited.
Yeah, I
Of
mean,
course.
Patrick Stewart is. What's really interesting about this is that it looks like it's got two speeds according to the trailer. It's got the quiet contemplated moments where it's Jean-Luc Picard sort of in his winery with his dog just kind of hanging out, possibly playing chess with Data if that happens to be Data. And then there's another sort of more action oriented side of the series with a younger cast that gets involved, and that of course brings Picard back into the captain's chair and up into space. So it could be a great hybrid drama action series, and of course the way that it's filmed is very cinematic, just like we came to expect with Star Trek Discovery. So exciting.
I'm gonna throw out a mention for Westworld season 3. I never even watched season 2 because I had to get through season 1 because I had to know what happened. But it was a show that I admired more than I enjoyed. And for me, with limited bandwidth, it's taken every bit of downtime I have just to watch the comic book stuff. God forbid I throw something else out there that isn't, top of the heap like Claws or Pose or something like that. But season 3 trailer looked fantastic. Nazis. And also an element where it appears that they're not going to be within that world. They're actually going to be outside. Yeah, so that made me feel like I'm going to have to binge 2 to know how they got there, and then watch 3. So I'm throwing that one out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely speaking of cinematically filmed shows, I mean, this one also looks beautiful. It had a feel to me a little bit of Blade Runner, like Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049, where it's got some interesting sort of like clean lines, some futuristic but then not too futuristic stuff sort of mixed together, some interesting elements, and of course, World War II land or Nazi land.
Yeah.
In Westworld. The next one for me, The Witcher. I've played the games. I have not read the books, and so before anybody
has a crush.
Yeah, before anybody calls me about why he has like only one sword instead of two, apparently he only has one sword in the books that he carries around with him all the time, and the silver sword he keeps.
Steve has a crush.
Yes. So Henry Cavill, who is insane looking in this, because there is a split second where he appears with his shirt all sort of torn in strategic places. And I could tell you right now that there are probably thousands upon thousands of men and women, drooling on the pause button for that, because his biceps are about the size of most small children's heads. They're just enormous, and his pecs are huge. And if you can ignore the wig that doesn't look great, but I mean, we'll have to wait until we see it in action. But man, he got big for this role. So damn. But also besides that, it looks beautiful. The character of Yennefer, who is one of the main characters, she's a sorceress from the books and the comic and the game and the comics as well. It looks like they are going to delve into her past, where she was a relatively deformed young woman with a hunchback and some deformities in her face, and sort of show her growth to becoming the beautiful woman through glamour, of course, and love interest that Geralt the Witcher encounters and travels with. And then also Ciri, the character of Ciri, who is slightly different from what I was expecting, but it looks like, given some of the scenes where they highlight some of her magic powers, looks to be just as intriguing and pretty cool and pivotal as she is in the books and the game itself. So I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know, everybody's looking for the next Game of Thrones, and so everything that's coming out that's sword and sorcery related or fantasy based, everybody's saying, oh, this is the new Game of Thrones, or this will be the new Game of Thrones, or whatever. This won't be the new Game of Thrones. It'll be different than Game of Thrones. So don't go in there expecting the same things. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And if it's Game of Thrones like in terms of popularity, I'd be really happy for it. It's on Netflix, so they've definitely got enough money to do a
Netflix
season.
or HBO?
No, this is Netflix.
That's Netflix. Okay. Another Netflix show, and this is much further away from genre, but one that I'm really excited about is Mindhunter Season 2. With this season, we're going to be getting peeks into the Charles Manson, BTK, and Son of Sam killings. I'm a big murderino. I'm also a bear, and since we have more Cameron Britton, that's a good thing. So I'm psyched about Mindhunter Season 2. That will be on Netflix. And something on Sci-Fi that I'm super psyched about, the spiritual successor to Sharknado, Zombie Tidal Wave, an original TV movie starring Ian Ziering. So I'm super psyched about that. What else you got there, Steve?
Oh, well, we mentioned Watchmen, Carnival Row, which is going to be coming out, I believe, later this month. Kind of, a fantasy steampunk hybrid. Looks kind of interesting. Don't know too much about it. We've also got the TV series of Snowpiercer, which looks to be pretty dang intriguing and pretty well done. I'm really interested to see how Jennifer Connelly does in the role that Tilda Swinton sort of stole the show with in the film. But she doesn't look obviously as crazed, but very intense in a different way. So we'll see how she does. I'm intrigued by it. I think it's really cool. And of course, if anybody's read the conspiracy theories or the connection theories about it, we can all try and look and see where Willy Wonka comes in and where the connection is.
Oh God, that seems like a dark, nice. It just seems like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon,
it totally is.
Yeah,
it totally is.
Yeah.
But
God bless you people. God bless you
yeah.
people keeping that stuff alive. Just want to throw out some panels that are on network TV. They did have panels for both Riverdale, which is going to be premiering on October 9th. And there was a panel with, I believe, the airing of the entire first episode pilot, and that's Stumptown, that is based on Greg Rucka's series of graphic novels, and which stars Colby, oh God, what's her last name? Oh, Smulders, appearing as Dex, and that is going to be on ABC, and that premieres on September 25th. What else you got?
Well, this is a pretty big one, I think, for some people out there. His Dark Materials, the adaptation of the book trilogy by Pullman, that was made into I didn't think it was a disaster of a film, but didn't really do very well several years back.
Was it called His Dark Materials?
His Dark Materials is the name of the trilogy. The Golden Compass was the name of the
trilogy. The Golden Compass. Okay.
Yeah, and that was also the name
Back
of
in St. Olaf. Yeah.
Of the movie. Yeah. So
I'm very sorry.
This looks incredible. Daphne Keane, who again was a breakout performance in Logan as little Laura / X-23.
Laura.
She looks. Laura. Yeah. I mean, it looks really cool. We'll see how close it is to the books. I know they've had a lot of controversy, obviously, for the people who like to drum up controversy about the subject matter, even though this has been out there for over 20 years, people. We all know what it's about. So if HBO is doing a closer adaptation, then you are going to see some religious elements.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's based on Christian theology in the way that Narnia is.
Yeah, except
I don't know why that necessarily has to be controversial. Surprises me. It looks like they're looking for something to be upset about.
Well, I mean, it is upsetting for people who do who do take a more literalist approach to the idea of God and angels and stuff. So there is a very I would say probably the most upsetting and most controversial. There are two elements that are in the book. One of them is of course underage sex. The other one is it is the depiction of God. So
right. There also is the abuse of power within the church is also a very central element. So yeah, I get it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean
it's been a long time. I only read the first book, so
they don't get into the other stuff until books 2 and 3. But the thing is, the real central story, of course, is like you said, the abuse of power of the church, of the central the central power on this world, and sort of the spirit of this young girl in finding a way to fight for it and for her friends, and other children and young people of this world, as she's thrown about into like this massive geopolitical conflict. So, very cool. And also, if you're a fan of multiverses,
and there's armored polar bears.
And there's armored polar bears.
Yeah.
In Bjorn.
Okay. Some of the other quickie announcements. Tom Cruise actually made an appearance, his first at San Diego Comic-Con, to promote the second Top Gun film. I believe it's called Top Gun Maverick. Does that sound right? Maverick, okay.
You have to pop open a beer. And
they also announced Terminator Dark Fate, and some of the news surrounding that will be that Edward Furlong will be returning as John Connor. Going away from TV and film, there weren't too many toy announcements, but the most impressive toys I thought are both going to be at GameStop. One was the X-Men Barbies, which have the Barbie versions of Dark Phoenix. That's a joke. Storm and Mystique. Was there another one?
I think those are the three.
The three. They're expensive as hell, but man, they're beautiful. And also there's going to be a series of Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. Again, exclusive to GameStop, and again, very impressive. On the streaming side of things, this is an archive show, but Robotech is now on the FilmRise and Vudu and the Roku channel platforms. And it's not just Robotech. You have Robotech, you have the remastered Robotech, you have the 3 original series that encompass the original Robotech, which are Super Dimension Fortress Macross, Super Dimension Calvary Southern Cross, and Genesis Climber Most Paid. I'm so happy I got those out. Shadow Chronicles, which was the, I guess, direct-to-video sequel, and a lot of supplemental materials such as documentaries. It's something like 255 episodes or programs in total. It's a lot, and you can watch all that for free on those streaming platforms. And that's all I have to talk about. Steve, if you have anything else, please get it out now.
Well, the only thing that I got to talk about, and this is actually something that was just announced after SDCC.
Does that count?
I don't know if that counts, but it's close enough, so I'm going to mention it because it tickled my nethers and made me happy. Is the new Funko Pop board games?
Okay.
Which I think they are going to be in this the latest issue of previews. So you can pre-order them for October, but basically,
I wouldn't know.
Funko, yeah, I know. I'm kind of yet. It's basically taking the Funko Pop style characters, shrinking them down a little bit into sort of like a half-size figure, and then making a board game out of it. So they're doing DC first, so you'll have sort of Batman-themed board game for 2 to 4 players. They also have what they call expandalones, which are additional boards and additional figures that you can use to increase the size of the original game, or you can use them as sort of like a smaller portable 2-person version for a board game as well. And it's mostly DC figures. However, they also announced a Golden Girls. Yep, where you get to play as Blanche and Rose. And then also Rick and Morty, where you can play as Rick and Morty. But it's the DC ones look really cool. And of course, I am partially sentimental about the Golden Girls one. So it's not exactly an SDCC announcement, but it's close enough.
Okay. Shut up, trash. All right, so that wraps up our San Diego Comic-Con coverage, and we're going to wrap this episode up for reals now. And when we finish an episode of the Comic Book Bears Up, we do so with a segment we call the Wolfs of the Week segment, where we spotlight something. Might be a comic book, but it also might be a film or a TV show or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, may be interested in sampling. Basically, this episode was kind of like one big Wolf of the Week. So I'm going to throw this over to you, Steve. Steve, what is your Wolf of the Week?
Well, I'm going to use the same one that I used in the Lost episode that we had last week. And I'm going to talk about a British series on Channel 4 in the UK called Drag SOS. It is a show where it's a reality show where a house of drag queens drive around the UK. And every week they stop in a new town, usually a small town, not known for being, a wild and crazy, queer, positive place, and go looking for 3 people that they make over into new drag personas, and they put on a big performance for their friends, family, and neighbors. And as crazy as the concept sounds, it is an extremely emotional show because it features people who, for whatever reason, feel marginalized, even if they are not, they may not be queer, they may not be, they may be just normal appearing people, but they all have very, great and interesting stories. And you also have some really exciting things. If you're into bears, there are a couple episodes. One where a big beefy rugby player with an awesome beard gets to enjoy drag for the first time, which is a lot of fun. And also some very tearful ones where a couple women get to be beautiful and get to see how they are beautiful on the inside as well as the outside as well. And they don't have to be in drag all the time, but the drag brings it out. But anyway, it's great, heartfelt show, Drag SOS, on Channel 4 or on any of your streaming platforms and friend servers if you can find them.
Okay, I am not going to replicate my Woof of the Week from the missing episode because it was kind of lame. So I'm going to talk about an app that I'm a bit addicted to. And this is the Topps Marvel app. And if you know your history about trading cards, the preeminent company in regards to trading cards was Topps. So Topps has altered the concept of collecting cards to an app. And this one is specifically based on Marvel. And there are 2019 bases sets that relate to Marvel and also to X-Men. They have much smaller series. They have these motion cards. It's very addictive, and I've become a collector. I haven't gone the trading route, but I have gone the fusion route where you can essentially trade up, take two cards of lesser value and get one card of greater value, in a sense, with the particular waves. You have mystery boxes through the day that you can claim and get cards, and you get coins, but there's also a monetary system, but I'm cheap, so I haven't gone that route. But this is really addictive. You can find me on there as Comic Book Bear with the Iron Fist icon, and I'm kind of addicted to this. Have you ever seen this at all, Steve?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
My apps are basically the DC Legends game and the Star Wars Galaxy game. That's pretty much all I do all day.
Because the thing is, like, I don't play games because I know what a time suck it is
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
how it'll claim me. So I don't do this. And so this is like almost like a hint of a game for about like a minute until things recharge. And but I'm kind of addicted to it. The Marvel Topps app. I also want to make one brief announcement, and that is at the Keystone Comic-Con that's coming up later in the month in Philadelphia, specifically on Saturday, August 24th at 1:30. I will be co-hosting the LGBT panel with our friend Chris Cummins. And Keystone is produced by the same people who produce New York Comic-Con and also Chicago C2E2 and Star Wars Celebration. That's Reed Pop. So Reed Pop, thank you again for the invite to do this. So again, if you want to see me on panel, you can do that on Saturday, August 24th at 1:30. Don't have the specifics about the room assignment, but both Chris and I will be there through the weekend as well, walking around and doing the con stuff. So that's Keystone Comic-Con in Philadelphia.
Cool.
Yes, it is. It's very cool. We had a great time doing the panel last year. An absolute great time. Speaking of con stuff, at some point, I don't care if it's November, we're going to recount what happened to us at Heroes Con because we haven't recorded about that. And with Heroes Con, that was the first time we had 4 of us together.
Oh, yeah.
There was a New York Comic Con where 4 of us attended, but Steve and Brian and Justin were never at the same place because you just came up for the Sunday. But for this one, we roomed with our former co-host Matt Broussard, and Brian was there as well, and we had extended family, for lack of a better phrase. And it was a great time, and at some point we'll recount that. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it because it was tons of fun. It was just great having the 4 of us there together. Experiencing the con, so it was just a ton of fun. It's really the people that make that con, plus the fact that it is very comics heavy. It is comics creators forward and very positive for that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy Baltimore so much is that has very much the similar vibe. You know, that they don't have a lot of non-comic book related content.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to press the timer on this one. It's the end of the episode. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by listening through iTunes and through Stitcher Radio and some of the other podcatching platforms. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Billy Z.
And I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion, and we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof!
When I think of you, my heart remembers all the love we've ever had, all the love we've ever had, just me and you. When I think of you, I remember springtime. That was when we fell in love. That was when we fell in love. Just me and you. Just me and you. Just me and you. Although it was some time ago, I remember yet that very first time when we first met, and I still think of you.